Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban looked like they would make a great couple for almost 20 years. She got a lot of awards for her work in movies, and he was a big name in country music. Their love story looked great to everyone, but things weren't really that great. We now know that Nicole asked for a divorce after 19 years of being married. Some say she worked very hard to keep them together. Keith didn't have his wedding ring on when he went on stage for the first time after the breakup. He didn't sing any love songs about Nicole, and he changed some words in his songs that made people think he was mad. We are finally getting Nicole's side of the story, which breaks the idea of a perfect couple. Let's look at what made everyone love them so much and what ended their famous love story. Nicole Mary Kidman was born in Hawaii in Honolulu in 1967. They were from Australia and had been living there for a while. Anthony Kidman, her dad, was a doctor who used to study science and the mind. Janelle, her mom, worked as a nurse and a teacher. Nicole's family went back to Sydney, Australia, when she was very young. The people she lived with always pushed her to do well and work hard. Nicole wasn't as sure of herself when she was younger than she is now. In fact, she was very, very shy. Her face would turn very red when the teacher asked her to speak in class. Teachers were afraid she didn't have faith in herself. She was shy, though, and she had a lot of ideas. She felt safe when she was acting. Then she tried taking acting classes, and finally she joined a kids' play group. She could show emotions there that were tough for her to do in real life. When she was a teen, everyone knew she was really good at what she did. At that time, Australia was making more movies, so she jumped at the chance. There were parts for her in TV movies, and then she was cast in the hit 1983 movie BMX Bandits. She stood out because she was tall and had pale skin. A lot of people thought she would become popular because of how well she could show how she felt. By the late 1980s, Hollywood was interested in her. It was around this time that Nicole met Tom Cruise. He was her first big love, and he broke her heart. There were a lot of pictures of them together after they got married in 1990. Nicole's marriage to Tom made her famous, but it also hurt her. Jim and Tom had trouble in their marriage because Tom was a Scientologist. Even though Nicole doesn't talk much about those years, everyone knows that she lost more than just a husband when her marriage ended in 2001. Besides that, she lost the main person who took care of their two adopted kids, Isabella and Connor. Nicole was really hurt by this. After the fact, Nicole's friends said she missed being a mom. Pushed out of the lives of her children. This was the worst thing that ever happened to a woman who wanted a family so badly. After that, when she met Keith Urban, she was really set on rebuilding her dream of having a home and a family, which makes sense. Neil Keith Urban and Nicole Urban were both born in New Zealand in the same year. When he was young, his family went to Queensland for work. That's where his character began to shine through. He was antsy and a little defiant. Try to find a way out all the time. Bob, his dad, ran a small shop and loved country music a lot. People in Australia didn't like this type of music very much. Until Keith was 6 years old, he told him to learn how to play the guitar. Country music, with its sad tales of broken hearts and second chances, helped Keith figure out who he was and how to deal with his feelings. Even though he was very good at singing, things at home weren't always easy for him. Some say that his family fought a lot and had money issues, which could be why he tried to find something stable all his life. He did shows at talent shows and small bars when he was a youngster. He was not only making his sound better, but also making himself look like a cool country outcast who looked like a rock star. He quit school to focus on music full-time. There was no backup plan for Keith. He could only get away with music. But he had problems along with his skills. He was already drinking and using drugs too much when he was in his 20s. It didn't get better when they became famous. It made things even crazier. He wanted to be known, so he went to Nashville in the early 1990s. He worked very hard for years before his big break came in 1999 with his first American record. Keith became the new hot guy in country music all of a sudden. His voice was full of feeling, and people loved the way he played the guitar and let his hair down. But behind the scenes, it took success to hurt yourself. It had been more than one time for him by the time he met Nicole in 2005. He was always afraid that his drugs would take away everything he had worked so hard to get. Nicole and Keith looked like they were from very different places. She was fancy like in Hollywood. He hit it hard in Nashville. The things they had in common were the problems they were both having. Nicole had scars from when she lost her family, and a marriage that made her afraid of being cowed and lied to. Keith had the instability of someone who had been unknown and popular, and who could never fight the urge to make things worse for himself. They were both in important parts of their lives when they finally met. Nicole was stronger than ever after her breakup. For the movie The Hours, which won her an Oscar, she showed she was one of the best actresses ever. She was still hurting inside, though, and were ready for peace after 10 years of chaos. Keith was rising to fame and finding his place in the tough world of American country music. But fame, traveling all the time, temptation, and working in a business that cares more about looks than sound were pushing him to the edge. He required a person to keep him in the real world and help him believe in something other than the stage lights. You can see the warning signs now that you look back. Keith's need for change and stability was always going to clash with her need for control and security. Their relationship seemed like it could get better. She might be able to rebuild the family she lost, and he might be able to forgive her by seeing how stable she is. But there were also signs of problems to come. Nicole thought it was risky to be with another famous person. Being married to Tom Cruise taught her how mean the spotlight could be. But she saw weakness and even fragility in Keith. It made her want to protect herself. He looked up to her and saw himself in her. Her discipline and success showed him how unstable he was, but her love gave him the chance to become the man he always wanted to be. Their early lives had made them complex and hurt people. Finally meeting in 2005, it seemed like fate, but it was more likely that they were made to be together. The news made it sound like a Hollywood dream when Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban finally met in 2005. They are both famous Australians who were born the same year and have been through hard times in the past. They met just as their lives were about to start over. The fancy clothes and red carpets made it look like they were meant to meet. There was more of a desire to hurt people than to follow fate in this relationship. Clinging to the hope of being saved. The first spark took place in January 2005 at a fancy event in Los Angeles called Day USA. Was a party for Australians who work in Hollywood. Nicole was no longer going through the ups and downs of her split from Tom Cruise. She had rebuilt her career and emerged as an Oscar-winning actress. Keith was a growing star in Nashville, and his songs were beginning to become big hits in other countries. She later said that she didn't think he was interested when they first met. He was nice, but he kept quiet. They gave each other their phone numbers, but he didn't call her for months. He not calling her for years afterward made her say that the love story was almost over before it even started. But when he finally did, something worked. Once their relationship began, it moved quickly. In May, they were seen in a picture together. She talked about him in interviews as the man who swept her off her feet by the end of the year. She saw him as freedom because she had been married to Tom and been suffocated by his attention. In every way that Tom Cruise wasn't, he was fierce, honest, and unkempt. Keith saw her as a source of respect, beauty, and a calming force he had never felt before. He walked the red carpet with Nicole as her partner by November, not just as her date. It was clear that they got along, and the press fell hard for them. The golden children of Australia had met each other in the United States. They got married in a big, beautiful wedding at a chapel in Sydney near the beach in June 2006. It had been a little over a year since they dated. Her dress was very fancy and had a long veil over it. He, on the other hand, had long hair like a singer and looked very romantic. There were a lot of Hollywood and country music stars on the guest list, but what really made the event stand out was how personal and small it was. He is said to have sang to Nicole at the party after the wedding while she went into the church by candlelight and tried not to cry. It was the right ending for fans of both of them after a hard time. Nicole, whose last boyfriend had put a lot of pressure on her, had found a guy who seemed to love her completely. Keith had made things right with one of the most famous actors in the world. It's too bad that life wasn't as perfect as fairy tales. Just 4 months after getting married, Keith went to rehab for drinking too much. After getting married, it was a terrible blow to their happiness. Nicole was in a tough spot just as she was finishing up writing thank you cards. It was all over the press, making it seem like she married a time bomb. He felt bad about going back to his old ways. He told her that his love for her would be enough to keep him steady. But quickly, his old problems came back. Nicole always kept her private life private, so she chose friendship over being embarrassed. She stuck by him, going to see him in rehab and not letting the press see how upset she was. After that, he told other people that she saved his life. But people who knew them well saw something more complex. She had been turned down to save her marriage to Tom, so now she was treating Keith like a child and protecting him. She had faith in him and in second chances. Their marriage would be shaped by that dedication for a long time. For the better and the worse. Even though things got off to a rough start, the couple worked hard over the next few years to become known as one of Hollywood's few long-lasting couples. She kept getting big movie parts, alternating between hits like Australia and movies that got great reviews, like Rabbit Hole. At the same time, he became one of the biggest stars in country music, playing all the time and winning many awards, including several Grammys. They were loving in public. She told him once that he brought her back to life. He thanked her a lot at award shows, and he would sometimes cry as he did it. There was stress behind the carefully made picture. For his job, he had to spend a lot of time on the road. They tried to make it work, even though she often worked on movies in other countries. They even made rules like never being apart for more than a few weeks. But people who knew them well said that their plans often didn't work together. Nicole was very upset that she had to be apart from Isabella and Connor Cruz, so she held on to the idea of family. She gave everything she had to being a mom when she and Keith had their first daughter, Sunday Rose, in 2008 and then Faith Margaret in 2010. He loved his kids, but it was hard for him to be a dad and an artist on the road all the time. Over time, they were able to sell themselves as proof that Hollywood was wrong to be skeptical. People who interviewed them said that they showed that true love could last through fame. People thought the family was close because of pictures of them at the airport, where she held the girls while he walked behind with their bags. On the inside, though, their tie was getting weaker. His ongoing struggle to stay clean was always a problem. Her need for stability sometimes turned into a need to be in charge, and friends said the couple had deeper problems than either of them would accept. They kept going anyway. We'll do anything to keep the fairy tale alive. They fell in love quickly, got married quickly, and then had to deal with a problem almost right away in their early years together. Because they were working so hard, they never stopped to deal with the cracks in their base. A bad boy who changed his ways and his patient savior kept up the act for almost 20 years. No one knew at the time that the same wild energy that brought them together would also break their hearts. There was always a lot of hope and performance in fairy tales, but they were also based on truth. But things were getting worse. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had been married for 10 years by that time, and they had been through more ups and downs than most couples can handle in your lifetime. After getting married, they went to rehab just a few months later. They also had to deal with long separations because of work and raising 2 girls in public. All of it made me feel pressure under my skin all the time. Still, they were a sign of strength for many years. By the middle of the 2010s, there were more and more reports of fights. Temptations, Keith's nightlife, and even Nicole's passion were said to have caused fights. The couple always rejected the rumors, and in interviews, they often acted as a single unit. Keith would say the same thing and call Nicole his rock, and Nicole would say that they'd never been stronger. But cracks will show no matter how well you try to hide them. People who knew the pair well said that she was getting tired of having to deal with his problems on an emotional level. She liked his music, but she was worried about how he was thinking. Keith would sometimes fight back when he felt like he needed to be saved. It was said that he wanted to be her partner, not her project. They were torn apart by the same thing that held them together for so long. And that was what they didn't want. Nicole liked how open he was, but she was afraid of it. He loved how strong she was, but it made him feel small. In their marriage, they were always deciding between saving and fighting, between being passionate and worn out. The story told to the people stayed the same the whole time. They were the love story that didn't go as planned. Not many people knew how hard they worked to keep up the act and how much of their own energy they used. It was very hard for them to live up to their picture. They were more than just husband and wife. Fans who wanted to think that love could last through addiction, fame, and being far away could look at them as proof. Every picture and move made in public became part of the story. But history shows that big stories can be both inspiring and sad. It was like Nicole and Keith were stuck in their own fairy tale. The way they raised their girls also showed how different they were. Nicole thought about routines, order, and keeping her kids away from the chaos of fame as she remembered lessons from her own broken family. Keith liked to be easy on kids and play the part of the fun parent. Their girls loved both of their parents, but close friends and family said that Nicole sometimes felt put down, and he sometimes felt like he wasn't taken seriously enough. These weren't the big, exciting fights that reporters loved to write about. They were less noisy splits. Trust and friendship get weaker over time. As the new decade began, reporters began to speculate that the marriage might be broken up. It got out that they had fights, spent time apart, and talked about Keith's old problems. Nicole and Keith both denied the rumors. They often went public together right after a story did. In talks, Nicole would say, "We've never been stronger." People who didn't believe her were won over by her calm voice. Some people denied what they said, but there was truth to the reports. Keith kept having trouble staying sober. There's no proof that he went as badly as he did before, but people who knew them well say she never really got over her fear that he would go back to old ways. She kept an eye on them, sometimes so much that it made things tense. It could be too much for Keith to be watched and questioned, even when he was doing the right thing. Nicole got tired of being the center all the time. She loved him, but she also wanted something else. A marriage where she didn't have to prepare for every storm all the time. The fact that they were different in private and in public may have been the most clear sign that they were breaking apart. In private, they were fighting, drifting, and going back and forth on problems they never fixed. In public, they pushed the fairy tale even more. It became more and more important for them to walk the red carpet. It looked like they were putting on shows for themselves, not the cameras. They kept telling each other and everyone else about the love story they used to believe in. Keith would hold Nicole's hand tightly at events and kiss her shoulder while talking in her ear. She would smile calmly, but people who saw her smile noticed that it looked like it was practiced rather than real. It looked like the love was real, but strained, like players reading lines they had learned a long time ago. Every marriage has resentments that aren't said, but in this case, the resentments got stronger as the years went by. It was said that Nicole didn't like how he relied on her strength and needed her to be both his wife and his rescuer. He didn't like how she was in charge of everything, not just herself, but also him, their kids, and their image. Friends of the pair said that they were always negotiating their relationship. She wanted safety, while he wanted freedom. He wanted to be passionate, but she wanted to be calm. They were both right, but their needs didn't always match up. In 2023 and 2024, the whispers got stronger. There were hints in entertainment magazines from anonymous sources that they were living different lives, but that they were still together. As she started going to events by herself, paparazzi photos started to back up the idea. At the same time, he was seen on tour without his wedding ring. This was because neither of them wanted to talk about their relationship in media. Still, the couple didn't want to believe the story of collapse. Nicole often said that being married was hard, which was both a humble and revealing thing to say. He would say that she was everything to him, even though his words started to sound more like rehearsed lines from an old play than real statements. Still, everything that falls apart has a turning point, and theirs was in the summer of 1995. The cracks had grown into big breaks by that time. As the rumors got worse, she spent more and more time with her girls, pulling away from the circus of them. At the same time, he put all of his energy into music, traveling more, and giving performances that sometimes seemed like confessions. People who know them well say that the choice to split up wasn't a big deal. There wasn't a single incident or main point. Instead, it was slowly becoming clear that they were no longer helping each other. Nicole knew she couldn't be both a partner and a caregiver anymore. She was sad but firm. Keith decided to leave because he was tired of the weight of Nicole's demands. The world gasped when she finally filed for divorce in late September 2025, saying that they could no longer get along. But people who had been paying close attention thought the end was almost certain. They worked together for almost 20 years to make one of Hollywood's most famous stories. A story about forgiveness, strength, and love that lasts. Even though the words on the court papers were short, just irreconcilable differences, they told a much bigger story. After that, there was not only a formal separation, but also a very public unveiling. Each step revealed the raw truth of a marriage that had been struggling to stay together for a long time. Nicole had her case heard in Davidson County, Tennessee, where they had kept a home for their family. Even though the paperwork was simple and even plain, what it meant was huge. After being married for 19 years, having 2 children, and many promises of eternal love, she was leaving. Some of her friends and family said she had been thinking about it for months. She worked very hard to keep the family together, especially for Sunday and Faith, their girls. One friend said she saw that she couldn't save both herself and the marriage. She had been the stabilizer, his rock against addiction, and the manager in a relationship that was often full of chaos for years. Lastly, she picked to stay alive. The papers made it clear that she wanted to live with the girls and make decisions with them, while he would share decision-making power. They both agreed not to pay child support or spouse support, a sign that they had not shared their money for a long time. Keith's answer was louder, more honest, and much more clear than her filing, which was a quiet sign of the end. The man was seen just a few days after the split news came out, and most importantly, his wedding ring was gone. That wasn't clear enough? He changed the words to 2 of his most famous songs during his first show after the split. He turned his concert in Pennsylvania, from what could have been just another stop on his High and Alive world tour into a public show about his personal life. He performed in front of thousands of fans for the first time since it was announced that he and Nicole Kidman were splitting up after almost 20 years of marriage. He didn't take any time showing that this was not going to be a normal country set. He got on stage without his wedding band on. An important move that the audience picked up on, and his actions changed all night between anger, sadness, and a strangely tender sense of longing. What made people gasp the most was when he changed the line "Take your space and take your reasons" in his 2004 split song "You'll Think of Me" to "Take your unreasonable reasons." Many people saw this as a subtle dig at Nicole. And how their marriage fell apart. This angry outburst, which was clearly caused by frustration, was very different from the picture he let play during Heart Like a Hometown, which was a slideshow of him and his 2 teenage daughters. This choice seemed like an unwilling nod to his family, even though things were falling apart between them. Fans also noticed that The Fighter was no longer on his set list at all. A 2016 hit that was thought to have been directly inspired by his relationship with Nicole, and he often did it with her in mind, which showed that he was trying to erase their past together from his stage acts. In between songs, he told the truth about his life, like how his parents told him to quit school and pursue music. He did this to remind himself and the audience of the passion that had driven him before he became famous. Getting married and scandal. The mental ups and downs didn't end there. There were reports that he was close with younger guitarist Maggie Baugh, but she wasn't there that night. Her presence still cast a shadow over the performance, though, because videos of him singing to her at earlier shows with different lyrics have gone viral online. This disappearance, along with the fact that he made big changes to his set list, added to the drama and mystery surrounding his personal life. It was clear that his show had grown into something bigger than a musical by the end of the night. The divorce papers and Keith's dramatic show turned the news around right away. The tabloids loved the drama and made Nicole out to be the victim who had had enough. Keith was made to be the tragic case, a man whose problems got the best of him and who couldn't meet her needs. Fans picked sides and watched every word he sang and every move she made when she was in public. Nicole felt like she could not breathe in the new bright light of the stage. She went in quietly because she wanted to keep the drama low, but his stage moves made it hard for her to be alone. For some reason, she had to react right away, not with words but with careful planning of her public appearances. A few weeks later, she showed up at a film festival without her wedding ring. She was calm, but her eyes were very sad. Family issues were at the heart of the breakup. Nicole never got over the fact that she lost Isabella and Connor while she was married to Tom Cruise. She was set on not making the same mistake with Sunday and Faith again. The divorce papers made it clear what she wanted. The girls would mostly live with her, which would keep things stable during times of change. It is also said that Keith agreed without much trouble. His touring routine and unpredictable way of life make him less suitable for being a parent on a daily basis. But people who knew him well said that the deal broke his heart. A source said that Keith loves those girls and that giving up main custody wasn't because he didn't love them. It was about the truth. Nicole has retreated to the safety of her children and her work in the weeks since the filing. In Nashville, she was seen going with Sunday and Faith, hand in hand. Her face was calm, but her body language showed that she was guarding them. For her, staying alive means focused on the things she can manage, like her kids, her job, and her own health and happiness. At the same time, Keith has put all of his energy into singing. His shows are electric spectacles, and each one is also a therapy exercise. Fans said that his concerts were like seeing his sadness in public because he would cry during some songs. People loved him more because he was so open, but it may have also shown them the truth that Nicole has chosen to leave behind. What do you think about their split? Write your answer in the box below. Thanks for seeing. To see more fun movies, click play on the one you're watching. Also, don't forget to hit the bell, like, and follow so you know when a new video comes out.